We don't want to just be like a UK channel. We want to be the largest tech community on the planet.
There's no way you do something without making money for 6 to 7 years unless you love it.
That was at a time where I was getting 400 views a video, and that video went on to hit 20 million views.
I was very skeptical when I clicked on the thumbnail, and then it kind of like makes perfect sense.
We're not in a massive warehouse. We don't use robots to film our videos. It's quite relatable.
How did it feel?
In a way, it's luck. But if you zoom out of the picture, it's not luck.
Do you feel competitive with Marquez? Arun Maini, aka Mr. Who's the Boss, has been uploading to YouTube since 2011. And over the past 12 years, he's gained over 16.3 million subscribers and 4.1 billion views. But it took him 7 years and hundreds of videos to find any traction on the platform. Today, he makes some of the most visually advanced and viral videos on YouTube. And in this episode, we talk about how he comes up with ideas to make him stand out from the incredibly saturated tech genre. We also talk about the science of his storytelling that keeps viewers watching all the way till the end, and how he's built his content team and system to consistently get out videos that do millions and millions of views. Tech reviewers like Mr. Who's the Boss have shown us that creators are oftentimes better at storytelling around products than the companies themselves. And as creators, our experience with storytelling online is what makes us successful when we decide to sell products online. And millions of successful creators and entrepreneurs are using the sponsor of this episode, Shopify, to power their businesses. Shopify is a platform that makes it easy for anyone to start a business, like Colin.
I've been here this whole time.
That's right.
Creating our new Shopify store, Yellow Things.
If you've watched our channel or watched anything we've made, you know we love yellow things.
I'm going to set up the store while Samir tells you about Shopify.
Shopify helps us close the gap between having an idea and launching it to our audience, so you can get feedback from your audience and build upon that. And that's why it's so helpful that you can create a Shopify store in literally minutes. Something really cool is that Shopify also has a new AI tool called Sidekick, which makes it even easier for you to start and run your business.
Just need to take one more photo.
He's just taking one more photo, and then Yellow Things will be up.
Any second now. Any second now, Yellow Things will be ready to go, and we're going to put it live.
Shopify also integrates really seamlessly into YouTube. So right here underneath our YouTube video, we have all of our products from our Press Publish shop listed, which turns all of our videos into digital storefronts, making it even easier for us as creators to run our businesses. All right, Colin, is the shop done?
Yeah.
All right.
It's done.
Yellow Things, a fictional store by Colin and Samir.
What? Fictional?
Yes. So if you have a business idea and you want to get started on Shopify, click the link in our description, go to shopify.com/Colin and Samir and get started today. All right, now for our conversation with Mr. Who's the Boss. Welcome to the show. The one thing that people will notice is that we are not in our set. We are actually in Ali Abdal's flat in London.
Yeah. You tell us if he's done a good job.
Yeah. Ali has been our camera operator and has graciously offered us the studio. But we really wanted to have this conversation. So
me too.
It's funny because when we first met downstairs in person, we were like, have we not met?
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of conversations, and it's, I think you're also so personal in your videos.
I think tech videos are a format where the default is to not be very emotional.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But it's, as the channel's grown, I've realized this is a human platform, right? This is the reason people would pick YouTube over Netflix is to connect with a person. And so more and more now we film things on iPhones, which past me would be like, this is disgusting. But it's the idea that that's kind of how I film my videos. That's what the viewer's thinking.
Yeah. I've noticed that you do have that interplay between the really high production value, the tons of angles. Every angle is specifically lit, and you're switching angles every sentence, it seems. But at the same time, you are beginning to host certain sections of your videos shot on a phone, which does bring me as a viewer in. I think you've kind of mastered that interplay between the two. And
you actually like both aspects individually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, your work, sitting and watching a Mr. Who's the Boss video, I find myself, more than any other channel on YouTube, pressing spacebar and having to rewind and go, what did he just do? There's a specific moment that we were watching in your Mr. Beast studio tour, which at this point has 21 million views. But there's a moment where Jimmy says Steve Jobs. And in that moment, you change his sweater from orange to black. Oh. It is a less than a second frame that changes. And most people, I would assume out of those 21 million, there's a small percentage of people who noticed that.
I mean, I missed it.
And then
when we were watching, that was the second time I was watching that video. I was going, wait, stop right there.
Yeah.
And did that make it more rewarding that you saw it because it was hard to see?
I think it's challenging to, as creators and editors, to understand how I would react if I didn't have that context. But when I watch your videos, I just think how hard it all is. Like that is hard to do.
Yeah.
And there's a great quote when I was listening to the creators of The American Office. Did you ever watch The Office in the US?
Yeah.
So they filmed that show like in a very small, real office. They could have built a set. They filmed it with one camera, most of the time. And what the creator said is, what makes this show hard is what makes it good. So all of those things that were hard and awkward and uncomfortable is what made it really good. And I always hold on to that of like, what makes production and post-production hard is also what makes the output really good.
I think the way we try and think of it is, have you ever watched the Marvel movies? Mm-hmm. You like them?
Yeah.
And do you find that like when you watch them, some part of you wants to watch all of them? Because it's like, it's what they've done is really they built a universe. It's not just a set of movies. It's every movie contributes towards a bigger world that exists outside of those movies. And we try and think about that when we make our videos in the way that we make jokes and little references to like Steve Jobs, for example. We want it to feel like I'm the main character in a set of movies. And even if you wouldn't necessarily click on one of the videos, you're watching it because you're watching the bigger picture story of my character arc in this movie that's Mr. Who's the Boss. If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
So we have a lot of like ongoing jokes, for example, that reference past videos. And at the start, I was like, this feels a bit weird because I want everyone to get all my jokes. But sometimes when people don't, it creates this community feeling that if you got it, I better comment this. I feel really clever right now. And if you don't get it, you'll look at those comments and you'll think, I want to get it too. I want to be a part of this club.
Wow.
So specifically, you're talking about maybe your two cats or your dedication to Rick Astley, right?
He's featured in, I think it's every video in the last 2 years, but 2. So we always find a way to slip him in.
Did you feel like you needed to put these human elements in because the tech genre is so competitive?
There is that. I think sometimes it's like, it's just funny. Like sometimes I think of things and I'm like, I find it funny. Someone else is going to find it funny. Plus, it's my personality, right? I can't invent a new personality. If this is me and people are coming onto YouTube to connect with other people like me, I've got to be me.
Yeah.
That's the only person I can be.
Yes. It's also what makes you singular. It's what makes you irreplaceable. Right?
Yeah.
Is that I'd rather watch you because you're uniquely you.
We're planning a video. We did one like a while ago that was like 50 facts about me.
Yeah. I watched that one.
And I could not believe I posted this. I was like, it's going to die. No one actually cares. And it got like 8 or 9 million views.
Yeah.
So we're planning a follow-up now where I go even deeper into my personality just to allow people to understand me and really understand me. So I'm going to try and be very real in this video.
Yeah. I mean, under the context of like the Marvel universe, right? That is how Marvel movies work, right? Like you watch a Marvel movie and then a few years later they release the origin story of one of the characters, right? And 100%. And the lore of that character is like very attractive because you're a fan of the whole universe. And I think what's amazing about YouTube is you can experience some of that yourself by clicking oldest on a video.
Yeah.
And I was curious if we could get into some of the history of, what those origin stories do really well in Marvel is justify how this person became who they are, right? How did Wolverine become Wolverine? And I think it's in a similar question that I look at most YouTube creators and click on oldest and go, why did they make that first video?
Yeah.
And yours is this incredibly lo-fi,
that's a very kind way of saying it.
Yeah. What's the right way of saying it? I mean, it's just lo-fi. It feels like a home video.
Yeah.
It was many years ago too.
13 years ago. So what was the impetus of uploading that video?
So my situation was, I would say I had a fairly rough time at school. No one really liked me. Like I was just this nerd and I felt out of place, like I didn't belong. And one day my brother walked home with a smartphone and he said, "Here, this is for you." And I unboxed it. This was like the best gift I'd ever received. He bought it using his first paycheck as well, which is incredible. And I fell in love with this smartphone. I just looked at it and all the things it could do. And like, I'd spent my entire life like getting one video game per year from my parents as like a birthday gift. And knowing that this thing in my hands could play 600,000 games all for free on this market, it was this like world of opportunity. But it wasn't the best phone. So my entire sort of life became, how do I make this phone good enough to play all these games, to take advantage of all these apps? So I really, really learned to understand with a passion the optimization process, the ins and outs of the smartphone, to the point where I was like, I actually know quite a bit. I should share this information. And at that point, I thought, okay, it's probably going to get 200 views. No one actually cares. But the first video got 10,000, 50,000. And that was before the channel even blew up. Like now, I think just because a lot of people use that oldest feature, it's on more than that. But it was a lot.
So you have that experience with this first phone. How aware are you of YouTube and what exists on YouTube?
I think it's one of those things where until you're actually a YouTuber, you never think of yourself as a YouTuber. I think even at the point where I had this first video, or I had my first 50 videos, I wouldn't have labeled myself as that. Because it's you and it's them, right? You're an audience and you watch the creators. So I was watching other YouTubers and I was creating on YouTube, but I never felt like I was one of them, if that makes sense. Up until, I guess you could say there was a turning point where I had my first viral video. And that was at a time where I was getting 300, 400 views a video. And suddenly I make this tutorial that's how to turn your smartphone into a hologram. And I didn't think much of it. I uploaded it on a Friday evening. And when I woke up on Saturday morning, it was on 300,000 views. And my email inbox was flooded with like, we want to interview you. We want the rights to use this. And like, I just didn't understand what was happening. And that video went on to hit 20 million views, which to this date is still like one of the highest one of our videos has hit.
How quickly did it hit 20 million views?
Within a few weeks, it became this like overnight viral DIY project. It was kind of like the perfect storm of really interesting, no one had seen it before, and it was on a Friday evening. So that weekend was really where a lot of the action and the sharing happened.
Whoa.
That's actually still your most viewed long form video.
Most viewed long form, yeah.
Whoa.
How old were you? Like, were you still in school?
No, I was in second year of university. So you always tell yourself when something does well, oh, why didn't I just do that earlier? But it took me a lot of journeying and making mistakes to get to the point where I think I made that video. So I was probably like 7 years or 6 years into the channel at that point.
What do you think it was that made that go so viral, and how did it feel?
What was it that made it go so viral? I think in a way it's luck, right? But if you zoom out of the picture, it's not luck. It's you trying enough things and suddenly something works.
Yeah, I mean, 7 years of trial and error is significant.
Yeah. I couldn't have told you at the time that video is going to do well. So in that sense, it is lucky, right? I lucked out that the ingredients of that video happened to just hit.
And what did it feel like when it hit?
I didn't understand. Right. I was like, it's glitching. This isn't right. This isn't me. But when it really dawned on me, it felt incredible. And it was like, I mean, viral videos don't make you famous. They don't build a career, but they show you the potential.
Yeah.
And so that video was a mindset change of like, I can actually be one of these people. I can be a YouTuber. And it changed the entire way I saw it as a career prospect. This was around the time where I was looking for jobs and things like that. And it started to occur to me that actually this could be one.
What kept you uploading in those 7 years?
It started off because I really, really liked tech and I really, really liked gaming. And I was so into those things, didn't really have anyone around me I could talk to about it. So I guess in a way, the internet was the friend who I brought along with me.
Yeah.
After a longer period of time, it becomes more of a business and you start to think of it like that. But just because I love it. And I think for any new creator, that's so important. You have to be able to get past the first 10, 100, 200 videos based on your love for it.
Agreed.
I think that's a great point. You have to prove to yourself that you like it enough to do it, whether it's a career or not.
100%.
Like 6 to 7 years is a long, that is a hobby.
Yeah.
There's no way you do something without making money for 6 to 7 years.
Yeah.
unless you love it.
But I guess that's the question. What was it? Were you monetizing in those 7 years?
I think I got my first paycheck about 2 to 3 years in. And I remember it being £64. So it was like $70.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, this is the big leagues. Because at the time I had no income source. And for me, I peg everything to how many video games could I buy with that?
Yeah.
And so to think like every month I could buy a video game, that's crazy.
Was that 20 million view video, was that a different scale of AdSense check that month?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was that? So that was the moment where you're like, okay, this could be a career.
Ish. Yeah. So it took until about a year later where I'd done an internship at a management consultant company and they offered me the job. And I was kind of sitting there thinking, could do this. This is technically still the higher earner. It was a good job. And it was, in a sense, what I'd been approaching for, like every decision I'd made up until that point was leading to this job. So it was do that or it was do YouTube. And it was when I was sitting there evaluating those two options that it became very clear to me that that is no longer one of them. Because like I said, the viral video doesn't make your career. It's this single spurt and you assume you're coming down from there, which I did.
You don't want to get too connected to that dopamine rush or that, even the signals. Sometimes you can take the wrong signals from a extremely viral video.
Yeah, the gut instinct is how do I make this again?
Yeah, that's the gut instinct. Is like, this is all I should make
Yes.
at this point.
And did you try stylistically?
100%. Yeah. I was thinking, do I make this into an app? Because you have to use to create the illusion of a hologram above your smartphone, you have to use a video that basically mirrors the image 4 times. Mm-hmm. So I was like, do I create a program that then allows people to turn any video into a hologram video? Those are the kind of things that were going through my head, but never really executed on it.
In terms of style of video or ideas, did you start putting out more tutorials? Because when I look at the hologram video, it's let me show you something about your phone that you didn't realize it could do in an accessible way.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I kind of just carried on doing what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work.
Which is funny how often creators do that.
Yeah.
That's a really common story. Yeah.
That like something very successful happened. Yeah, happened to us all the time. If you look at our channel, our trajectory, we would make a video that clearly overperformed every other video. And we would go, that's great. Let me show them what I used to do.
Yeah, let me show something totally different again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's common. What did your family think about pursuing YouTube like that?
I think that was a big turning point for family as well.
Got it.
Like growing up, it was because I was doing this from school. So they saw me doing it during my GCSEs, during my A-levels. I remember actually the morning of one of my really important A-level exams, I was filming like a review of a pair of earphones in my garden. And my mum opened the door like, Aaron, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that like a final exam? That's what that is?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the US, I guess that would be what it was called.
Yes. So there were questions, but as soon as I think my family saw what it could be, they were all on board. And they were just like, we don't necessarily fully understand all the intricacies, but we support you.
How did money play a role in any of the decision making? Like, were you very attracted to, like, coming out of university, was money a big thing that you were looking out for, or was it more satisfaction, fun, validation? Like, what was motivating you at that point?
I think it was money to an extent, like in so much as I could provide for myself and get cool things. But actually, I'm quite simple in terms of what I need. Like most of my t-shirts are like plain, unbranded t-shirts with different colors so I can wear them in videos and things like that. Like I don't buy a lot for myself.
Yeah.
But I also get to test a lot of really cool stuff as part of the channel. So that satisfies that
interesting
need of like, I'm getting cool stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there anything for you from an identity perspective that was starting to give you confidence or feel like this is the truest version of yourself or a version that you like?
Confidence, 100%. I was not confident at school. Like people would just like come up to me and whisper like, you're ugly. And then just like, I'd be like, what? So it's not great.
Where did you go to school? Like, where was this?
Just in Nottingham in my, like, it's like a smaller town. It's a city. It's a smaller city north of London.
Got it.
But yeah, so school was difficult. And I think it's also potentially slightly racist.
Yeah.
I think as soon as you go out of the main London area, which is very multicultural, you reach people who are more typically like, this is our country.
Yeah. And is it specifically towards Indians, or is it?
I think so, yeah. I think people will group in all different people with brown skin together into something that's just not very positive. You know, like they'll talk about, oh, your house smells of curry and stuff like that. So you just don't feel very wanted.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can absolutely relate to that.
Yeah.
Growing up in the U.S., I mean, I was lucky to grow up in Los Angeles, but which is a little bit more diverse. But I went to schools where I was the only kid with skin color. You know, I did go to an elementary school like that, which was a really strange experience.
And you felt it. You felt like an outsider.
Absolutely. Yeah, I became aware of it, and I then, you know, I don't know if you had this feeling, but I like pushed away my Indian identity as much as possible. I was like, well, I just need to, now I need to be American. I need to speak like an American. I need to learn the culture. I need to watch the movies. I need to listen to the music. Because you go home and you're eating Indian food, watching Bollywood music and speaking Hindi, you know, and then you're like, it's almost like kind of like a superhero, you know, or something. You try and change your identity when you come to school. Like,
it was not cool to be Indian.
Yeah.
Like I used to be a vegetarian on Tuesdays because that's a thing in Hindu culture. And my friends would not understand it. They would just think like, why don't you just be vegetarian or not be vegetarian? But I was trying to explain, you know, it's a holy day. It's respect. It's showing a little bit of sacrifice.
It's interesting when we talk to a lot of creators who maybe felt misunderstood or just isolated alone in their environments, the internet provided a very diverse place where you could find people like you. And that's like a really empowering thing for, I think, me as like a young Indian kid growing up. Like, it was hard to find people who looked like me on screens outside of Bollywood movies, in America or anywhere else. And I think right now the abundance of that is like very exciting.
Yeah, even across Netflix now. Like you open it, there's a Korean show or an Indian show.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It's a cool moment. So where, I guess, for you in the beginning, like where did business come into this? Like when did it start to go, okay, management consulting, that's not an option for me. But like, okay, now YouTube's like actually, like what's the jump to, okay, YouTube's an actual business now?
Yeah, so I think at the point where I made the decision to go YouTube versus management consulting, this was still the lower earner. So it wasn't a case that it overtook my job and then I was like, okay, I'll leave that for this. It was this pivotal crossroads moment where I had to decide, follow my heart, follow my brain. But I think a pretty good indicator that I've made the right choice was that I would go into office when I was at this internship and just all day I'd be thinking of what video I'd film when I got home. So, and it's also like tech is just so fun. Tech is like gaming and headsets and consoles. Like I just love it.
Was there something about tech at that exact time too? Like bring us into the world of tech during that time when you're making that decision. If you remember, what are the products that are coming out? What's the environment?
The big thing was the smartphone. It's still the big thing, but I think interest in the smartphone is fading a little bit. But at this time, every year, people would tune in to the Apple launch event or the Samsung launch event and pay big attention to the changes that were being made because they were very visual, very obvious, very exciting. You know, just the idea of having a screen that goes all the way to the edges of the phone, that felt like an incredibly like exciting prospect. Plus, the specs mattered more. You know, I would pay attention to new chipsets that were announced, because I was like, oh, if I want to play this game and I want it to run smoothly, that chip is going to help me to do that. Whereas nowadays we've reached a stage where you can generally do everything you want to do well on your phone. So it matters less.
And the changes are kind of nominal, it feels like. Like they're not that dramatic.
So would you say then it was easier back then to make a video because the advancements were bigger?
Yes, I think so. So with YouTube videos, it's all about telling a story, right? You guys know this. So back then, the story being told was much simpler. It was like, oh, it's better in all of these ways. I can show you, I can tell you, you can feel it. Whereas now, it's like you receive a new phone and you've got to really think to yourself, what is the story here? what is the story with the Samsung Galaxy A54 2023 edition, you know? So that's why we spend more time thinking now about that angle.
Yeah.
So for example, this Samsung phone came in recently. If we just reviewed it, it would have not done very well. It would have probably been like a 1.5, 2 million video. What we instead decided to do was to research what it was about this series of phones that made it different. And it turned out it was one of the best-selling series of phones in the world. So we thought, why is this the best-selling? That's quite interesting. Let's make a video about that instead, using this phone as the subject. And that ended up being one of our better performing videos that month.
That's cool. I also like when you ask questions because I feel like I'm in one of your videos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really great.
Yeah.
I did want to ask and go back just a second of for an somewhat underconfident, misunderstood kid, being on camera is like a juxtaposition to that.
Yeah.
What did it take to be on camera? Because you weren't on camera in the beginning. What did it take to put yourself on camera, and how did you get the confidence to be on camera?
So I'm someone who pays a lot of attention to data. I was really good at maths. My degree was economics, so I love this stuff. And it dawned on me that all the data points were telling me to show my face. So eventually, like once I'd built up the confidence to do it, it was this feeling of this is what I should do. Now I'm so glad I did it. Like now, I'm very comfortable on camera. People know me better. Yeah. But it was this moment of like, I've got to do this. It needs to happen because the numbers are telling me so.
In what way do the numbers tell you that you should be on camera?
So I guess part of it is the comments, right? You read the comments. Each comment is in itself a data point. But then also it's the watch time. Like what I would do is I would post the same video as other creators at the same time, and I could not understand why mine was not doing as well until it occurred to me that that video has a human in it, my video has a hand in it. And so it's that I guess the impact on the watch time or the viewer satisfaction that difference was having, that was the difference.
So were you nervous to get on camera?
Horribly. And like the first time I get on camera, you can see how awkward I was. I was bad. And I was like, I think I was making eye contact with the screen and like just kind of looking around and like, I don't think I even knew how to like edit the video properly either. So it was just this uncut sequence.
Are you looking at any other creators for inspiration of how to act, how to move on camera?
There was a lot of like what I thought being a tech YouTuber was at the beginning. I was wrong about everything. I used to think what you needed to do was to have a clean white background. And so the viewer could see nothing. So it was professional, right? But it's the exact opposite. Like now, we take advantage of the fact that we film every video in my bedroom. That's the highlights. Like, look, guys, I'm in my room. This is sick. And I still, I live with my parents. Like what's really, I think, what people like about our channel is that it's quite relatable. We're not in a massive warehouse. We don't use like robots to film our videos. It's just like, it's my cameraman, it's me, I take it on my iPhone in my bedroom. Like our desk is where my bed used to be.
I will say, you don't use robots like Marquez does. But you do have some pretty intricate camera changes and movements, and you'll like drop into a seat.
Interplay between stable shots and handheld shots, graphics. Like it is, again, the frame by frame breakdown of your videos are incredibly complex.
That's because we've watched actually side by side one of your videos and one of Marquez's videos about the same phone and tracked the first 30 seconds.
Interesting.
And the amount of angle changes and graphics that you have in comparison to Marquez in the same amount of time is like you're like up here and Marquez is here. It's just interesting that it's like two very different approaches.
Yeah. Marquez makes really, really good videos. And I just think that the style is, what we're going for is very different. I think very different. Marquez gets really early videos. He's really fast turnaround. And he's just so good at just being off the cuff, speaking.
His stand and deliver or sit and deliver is unparalleled on YouTube, in my opinion. Like listening to Marquez for 10 minutes. I watched his breakdown of the Apple event. And it's like, it came out so fast. And it was like 10, 12 minutes of him just sitting and talking. And I was like, this is so enjoyable.
Yeah. But even like, because sometimes like when he just tested the Vision Pro headset, he came out and we were just sitting outside together, just chatting about the experience. And he's like that in person too. Like he can just off the top of his head, just rattle off some really precise, concise thoughts.
The difference with your videos is one of the things that I think bumps the watch time is how good your writing is. Mm-hmm. You have a video about that breaks down kind of the history of Apple events and what makes Apple events so good. And it is so well written. I was 4 minutes into that video and I paused and looked at Colin and I was like,
it's been 4 minutes.
It's been 4 minutes and I've just learned so much and we have another 11 minutes to go. And I think it's that writing process. You can feel the amount of research and intricacy that goes into how you write your videos. When did that come about in the trajectory? Like going from, okay, I'm on camera with this white background, I'm filming. Like, were you off the cuff there? And when did writing and kind of the intricacies of research and all of that enter into the picture?
It's a really interesting question. And I couldn't tell you an exact moment. I think it's probably all born out of this natural feeling of, I don't fit in. I don't want to waste anyone's time. Because that's what I've had growing up from the very beginning. So when I was making a video, every sentence is like, is this needed? Is this funny? Will this person get it? Plus, I've always been someone who wants to understand things very clearly. So I was a good kid at school, but teachers would find me very annoying because I would ask a billion questions. I wouldn't stop asking questions until I understood this topic from every angle.
Yeah.
And I think I try and do that in the videos too. I try and really think to myself. I actually think of 3 people when I'm writing videos. I think of my cousin, I think of my fiance, and I think of my mum. And so with every sentence now, it's like, would all of these 3 people understand this? Would they find it funny? Would they relate to it? Mm-hmm. And so by doing that, I guess I feel like I'm ticking the boxes of the widest possible group of people.
That's super interesting. And what is that writing process like?
Most of it is me on a laptop, just somewhere. I spend most of my time still is doing the writing. And I've tried to hire for it. And I have someone now who does help me with writing and researching and stuff, but it's very, very hard to replicate the tone that I've developed. So oftentimes I will find myself looking at the script and being like, this is really good, but I would do it this way. So yeah, I guess it's only at those points where you realize how much you've learned about telling a story.
Yes.
Is it, I would do it this way in terms of the storytelling format, or is it, these are the main points that I find to be the most interesting when you look at a script that a writer gives you?
I'd say it's both. Yeah. I definitely am aware that with tech, there's certain things that aren't interesting anymore. Like with phones, for example, like people don't want the battery life was this and the display is this and all that sort of thing. So I pick what I want to cover, but also make sure that anyone can understand it.
Yeah. So was that relatively gradual from when you started to when you crossed 1 million subscribers? Was, I think, about 8 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think so.
It's a long time.
And then from 1 million to now over 15 million is another 6-7 years. And that's obviously an insane jump, right? 1 million to over 15 million is a crazy jump. And I think you've had incredible jumps over the past 2-3 years. Was that all gradual, or was there another big hit like the hologram video, or a series of those? Like, what was that the past 7 years like?
The biggest hit the channel's ever had came when I started uploading regularly. So the moment I decided, not doing this consulting job, I'm doing YouTube, and I did one video every single day for like 6 months, I could see the numbers flying. I could almost see every single day I was gaining more subscribers than the last day. And a community was forming. There were people who actually tuned in every single day, regular commenters. Before that, I was not a YouTuber, I would say. It was at that point where I was doing it daily. That's when it became real.
Whoa, daily is so hard.
Insane.
Yeah.
How did you come up with enough ideas about tech every single day and then actually execute and edit every day?
So one of the things that I found was software was way easier to cover than hardware for 2 reasons. A, the fact that new hardware doesn't come out every day. B, the fact that no one knew who I was. So with tech, a lot of it is about, can you get review samples? A company, before they release their product, will hand out samples to reviewers. If you're not in that first batch of samples, your video is late. And really, you're automatically niche. So given I wasn't a part of the industry, But also I was, I wanted to be a part of the industry. The only thing I had was a phone. So I was like, okay, let me make loads and loads of app videos. Let me find out how to customize your phone the best. I can do that too. How to speed up the phone you have. That was the bulk of my content because I didn't have the money or the connections to get hardware.
That's amazing that what you would think is a disadvantage became your advantage in that scenario.
Yeah.
Like the constraint of just having to work with whatever was on your phone because you couldn't get the newest phones.
100%.
Was what sort of, I guess, propelled the career.
Yeah, it's that whole constraint breeds creativity.
Yeah. And so it was just you editing.
Yeah. The editing was simple back in the day.
Yeah.
It was only when I got to a point that I started to, I guess, value my own time, like put that time at a premium that I was like, now's the time to not do the things that I don't need to do. And actually, you'll find people who are better at doing those things than you were, which it was hard for me to let go as a perfectionist. I don't know if you guys had this too.
Yeah, I mean, Colin is the main editor between us. I can edit, but I was always like, my preference would be someone else does this. And I think Colin was more of like the painter who, editing was his painting.
Yeah, I felt like giving up the work to someone else was like giving up part of my identity.
Yes.
In a way.
100%.
It's like, I may not be the best at it, but it's the most me. And I like that about it. And when I found myself working with other people, I had no experience doing that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a language to tell them. I was self-taught. How do you tell someone to do something when you just learned over 10 years of making mistakes?
A lot of times in the early days of like bringing on freelance editors to help us, I would find an editor, bring him in, try and figure out how Colin and him would work together, or her, and they would edit. And then Colin would get the project, undo everything, and then re-edit the video. And I was like, okay, this is not efficient at all. Like we were just now paying people to basically
make our jobs harder.
Yeah, make our jobs harder now. Now we're undoing things.
I've been there before as well, funnily enough. One of the things we realized is really, really helpful is to have a document where you spell out all of the things you do, the things that make your videos to the T, to the level where someone who had no knowledge of how to do it could walk in and recreate it. Like if it's for the edit, for example, you say, this is the font we use. This is the outline we use. This is the thickness of that outline. Do you know what I mean? You make it so granular. And that way you've basically created a format, this document, that you can hire people quickly and get them up to speed.
Did you make that document before you hired your first editor?
No. We've only done a lot of this stuff very recently. My first editor I hired when I had no idea, kind of like you were saying, no idea what I was doing. I actually could barely afford to pay my first editor. I just became very aware that if we have two people working on this at the same time, we're going to massively expand our revenue so that by the end of this year, we should hopefully make twice as much as we did last year.
And when you talk about money here, is it all AdSense or were you doing brand partnerships? What does the business look like when you are able to hire an editor, but you're also a little bit worried you may not be able to afford it?
Sponsors have only really started flooding in the last 5-6 years, I would say. It was this weird, uncertain new thing back then. So the vast majority of the income was AdSense, and it wasn't a massive amount of AdSense.
Yeah, the sponsorship market has also changed dramatically in the past 2 years. I would say since 2020, since the pandemic, is when I think the sponsorship market really changed.
And you noticed that for your channel?
Yeah, definitely. Were tech sponsorships at that time, were people paying for reviews?
So because I was a software channel, one of the problems I had was all the people who would approach me were software companies.
Got it.
And they worked on a very, very heavy ROI basis because a lot of these were very small companies and they'd be like, we can give you like $100. Please promote our app. So yeah, it was much more frugal than I think lots of these big corporations being like, we just want to promote our brand generally are.
Yeah. There's kind of like, you have to look at the companies that are looking to sponsor you and understand if they're there for brand lift or brand awareness, right? Which is going to be the big companies who are, hey, I want to associate myself with Mr. Who's the Boss. I want to be on the channel. I want to be cool, right? I want that brand awareness. Then there's the like, you have to kind of watch out for, I think, the CPA, like the cost per acquisition, where it's, hey, I'll pay you $100 and then I'll pay you $25 for every sign up you bring me. Because now you're now you're playing into an evergreen video that's on your channel forever, where you're talking about the sponsor. And if their funnel isn't great, then, and they can't get signups, that's not on you. You still marketed the product.
100%.
Right. And so
I really don't like affiliate marketing for that exact reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't capture the full value of what you're giving to them.
And there's so much value to brand association. When you've built a brand over 13 years, like you have, like that's incredibly valuable to be associated. That's my perspective on marketing. Where does the name come from, by the way? I meant to ask you that earlier.
We haven't revealed it.
Really?
Officially. Well, we kind of have, but I did it as a joke.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that,
We'll leave it at that. So that's part of the lore too. That's like the part of the Marvel movie is like one day you'll make the movie that reveals it.
Yes. We talk about building this community of people who understand tech and want to use it for the betterment. There's a part of it that's like, who's the boss of tech? Are you the boss, or is tech the boss of you? That's one way of looking at it.
Okay. I like that you're giving us fan theories as the creator.
And yet
There's also a really good association in the sense of like, it's unique as a name.
Yeah.
So like the temptation when you start a tech channel is you have the word tech in your name and then you stick some sort of adjective afterwards. Whereas this being something that's like, when you hear it, it sticks in your mind, right? You don't know what it means, but it's just a word that someone's invented. You don't have to know what it means to be able to remember it. And where was I going with that?
Like the brand doesn't need to serve you on a silver platter like what it does.
Yes.
Right.
Google is a great example of this.
Yeah.
Google is not a word.
Or Uber.
Well, Uber is a word.
But Uber is a word.
I think
but
Google is based on a Google, which is like a really large number.
True.
Yeah.
But just like these are not...
never mind. Let's cut that part. Yeah.
But the idea that...
probably just cut that whole section.
Yeah, we'll just cut the entire thing.
Yeah.
We'll just start the podcast now.
Yeah.
So on that document that you bring up, I do want to talk about like, what is it that makes a Mr. Who's the Boss video? Because what I'm looking at now in 2023 has evolved over the years dramatically, but you are a watch time specialist, you are a retention specialist. The one thing I will say is like, I'm kind of allergic to retention editing, right? Stuff that's kind of flying in my face. I'm in my mid 30s. I can sit and have something move a little slower.
Yeah.
But when I watch your videos, although a lot is happening in 20, 40, 60 seconds, there's text, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of new questions. I don't feel the same overstimulation. I feel very comfortable in that. And it does keep me going. And I'm always impressed and surprised when I pause the video and say, how much time has passed right now? How has he done this? So I'm curious about that process of, or like that document of what is a Mr. Who's the Boss video? What's the recipe for it?
I would say, sorry, finish the question.
No, that's it. Yeah. What's the recipe for it?
So I would say it is constantly changing. Like we're constantly thinking of how do we make this better? So for example, about a couple of years ago, we thought it would be a great idea to have timers everywhere, like ticking circles and next section in, because we thought, oh, well, if people constantly know something's coming, then they won't leave if they don't like this particular thing. Now we're realizing actually, it's much better to tell a story that's so interesting that people aren't thinking about time at all, right? To almost, instead of giving people so much stuff to look at, like a product here, like text there, like my face in a circle here, you just give them one thing and you're the director just guiding through what the best thing is to see at any one moment. That's like a tier above just blasting people in the face with editing.
Right.
So we're going through changes, but I guess it's all in the name of how do we make this a video that gives the information in the most concise way possible, makes it understandable, and makes it enjoyable.
There's a Alex Hermosi quote that I just read that said, "There's no such thing as a video that's too long, just too boring."
Yeah,
which I think is a really interesting quote to
100%.
think about. Let's watch one of your videos, at least the first 20 seconds. I think it's
the first one.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to take a look at and give context to.
This is the brand new Nothing Phone 2, and this is Carl Pei, the guy who made it. This is a rare opportunity to learn about not just what this phone is and the thought behind each decision, but also to really understand the secretive way that the world of smartphone building works. So I'm going to make sure we get all of that insight, and then a couple of curveball questions at the end. So I think for us, it was important with that video because we knew it was going to be a slower paced video and that we wouldn't have as much control over the hook, the structure, because it's just an interview. So it was important to get out all the things at the start to be like, you're going to get this, this, and this. I can't guarantee you in what form, but just know that it's coming.
I like how you phrased it. You said, I'm going to ensure that you get all of this, all of these insights. Yeah. And it's like, I hear that and I go, oh, thank you. I didn't even know I wanted those, but thank you.
Yeah. It's important. I never want to lose people. I hate the idea of someone watching my video being like, I don't know what's going on. So the Nothing Phone 2, I thought it was important for people to understand that there was a Nothing Phone 1. Even though 90% of people probably knew that, it was like catching the people up who weren't.
And even the context that it had sold 800,000 units, which I didn't know, was it almost validates this person, right? Because you're sitting next to a person and you're like, you should listen to him, right? And that moment for me validated him, which I know I've seen him before and he's the CEO of this company, but you gave me a proof point, social proof, right? Of, okay, if you had doubts, now you shouldn't.
It's probably subconscious. I didn't actually think of that. That's interesting.
Is there anything written in the document that shows up here in these first 40 seconds that you could point to?
Well, I always jump into the chair. That's a given. And we actually asked Carl if he wouldn't mind jumping in the chair with us because that's part of the channel law, right? So people who have seen me jump into chairs for the last 10 years, that's actually their payoff, right? They get to see the CEO jump into the chair.
That also proves he's in your environment.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
He has entered the universe.
A good way, good way of putting it. Yeah. So we even made sure that, so we interviewed the Google CEO, Sundar Pichai, a while ago. And I couldn't quite get the confidence to ask him to jump into the chair. So I filmed a take after he'd left where I jumped into the chair.
Oh, interesting.
So at least the viewer got that in that environment.
The Google CEO, he also mentioned that his kids watch your channel, which was a really cool moment in that video.
Cool.
When I was looking at that, I was like, I wonder what that feels like for you.
I wasn't really thinking of anything in that moment. I think I wasn't thinking straight.
Like, you're with the CEO of Google and he's not like, okay, I'm here for a press thing. I don't know who this guy is. It's like, my kids talk about this guy. I know who he is. I have a ton of context on him. Like, that's a pretty amazing thing. You think about starting out in the world of tech, that's like...
It's pretty up there.
Like, that's up there, right? The CEO of Google is like...
He was just generally a very, very nice guy. There was some uncut bits like behind the scenes. Sure. Like when he first came into that area, he kind of made a beeline towards me. Like he just came straight just to say, hey, Aaron, I love your videos. And I was instantly just settled. I was so nervous before that, right? I was thinking, I've got to make sure I get my questions across. As soon as he said that, whoa. Like it's not, I'm here to interview you. It's just let's have a conversation.
Yeah. It's amazing how those simple moments can take some of that air out of the pressure and the nervousness of like, okay, actually we're seeing each other at eye level right now. Okay, one more video.
This is iOS 17. I've been using it for about a month. It's probably the single biggest update that iPhones have ever had. You can do multiple timers at once. You can automatically clear out any used verification codes from your emails. You can reply to messages by swiping right. You can show it a photo of a meal and it'll tell you how to make it. It even has an AI that can learn to speak in your voice, which we'll test later. And these are just the little things. So that video we filmed quite quickly. That was like, we found out that news like earlier that day that we were allowed to talk about it because you don't find out before. So we were just like, let's cover this. So that's like a rapid fire compressed version of what we normally do in a sense. So one of the things I was thinking with that intro is to deliver a lot of value very quickly to make it clear that you need to stay because that's like, it's a teaser, right? It's the trailer for the whole video, that first 30 seconds. So I gave people the quick miscellaneous facts first to then dive into the major changes later, the more categorized ones.
So you're like, if I get all of this up top, if my assumption was those were some of the 10 things, those are now out of the way.
Yeah.
What could those 10 things be?
It's 100% that.
Got it.
Good way of putting it.
That's interesting.
What's interesting and different about you, though, is that a lot of creators, the first 30 seconds, of course, it's a hook. It's the most intricate when it comes to the edit. And then they calm down. They're like, we got you. You're here. Here's what I have to say. For you, 12, 15 minutes into a video sometimes, I'm like, the angles are still changing. There's still text. Happening. There's still graphics. You have such a serious dedication to visual storytelling. Why is that?
I have to give a lot of credit to my team. I have one guy, Josh, who's like, he came in as a camera guy. He has a massive, massive eye for detail. And so now he's at the position of like director because he really thinks. Like when we were doing the Sundar interview, for example, it's not cut in a way of like, let's just keep the lines, the important lines in. Like there's so many times where you'll see his face while I'm saying something, but that wasn't his face while I was saying that thing. Like there's so much intercutting just to tell a story. So a lot of the times it's not just me, like I'll sit with Josh and we'll do this stuff together. So just having someone to bounce off.
What does the team look like that can do this? Because I look at it, and to do this on a consistent basis, sometimes multiple times a week, sometimes day in, day out, right? Like how have you built this team, and what makes up the team?
So up until very recently, my strategy has been slow, careful, mindful expansion. Like get to a stage where you really, really need a role to be filled, then find the perfect person for that. More recently, I'm realizing that given that YouTube is a higher profit margin type of company, because you can do it while being quite streamlined, it makes sense to actually, if you can find good people, get them in. We found recently that actually Josh, who I was just talking about, was probably working at about 110% capacity. He was kind of had a little bit more work than he needed to do to get his job done. And I've been so reticent to actually get someone in to help him because I'm like, well, then you'll have two people at 55%. That's no good. But actually, now I'm shifting my opinion to if I get someone who's really good, we'll have two people at 55% who will then grow to two people at 80%, which is sustainable, and we will overall have more output.
Interesting. So how many people are on the team now?
So right now there's 7, but we're planning some expansion pretty soon.
And what does everyone do?
The vast majority is editors, because we have a long form stream of content and we have a short form stream of content. So that all needs a lot, and we put a lot of editing into our videos. So that's most of it. Then it's one writer / researcher and one guy who just helps me with all the setup, because gadgets come with a lot of baggage. You got to connect the apps, you've got to set up the TVs and unbox everything.
Oh, interesting.
It takes a lot.
And in terms of having multiple editors, are they working on one video? Or are they working on multiple videos?
Yeah.
Like, is there one editor per video, or you're making that video all hands on deck, everyone needs to be involved?
So the added difficulty of tech is things have to be responsive. You have to respond to the news cycle. So what I've actually set my team up as is 2 teams. There's an editing team A, who focuses on efficiency, getting videos out quickly, and an editing team B, who focuses on our things that aren't time sensitive and does it with the mindset of this video should be everything a Mr. Who's the Boss video can be.
Interesting.
Really interesting.
What does editing team A do if there's nothing topical? If there's no news or no new tech, do they help editing team B?
They can do. Yeah, so the team is quite flexible.
Yeah.
We've just actually added a new Slack channel that says help me for people who need help.
Yeah.
But also developing presets is a big part of it. So if you don't have anything right now, spend that time making something that will make the next video quicker or better.
Meaning like graphic presets or like text treatment presets.
I was watching and thinking that's the only way these can come together this quickly, because you're putting out multiple videos in a week.
Yeah.
And the only way that they could be that intricate is with a lot of process, a lot of templates.
Yeah, 100%.
And it made me wonder, are you naturally that way when it comes to putting systems in place and even just managing people? Like, is it natural for you to oversee this many people?
So I am, and my brain is very, very compartmentalized. So I see my day in like blocks, and like the block of me traveling to this podcast, for example, was an hour. And I was like, that hour is a perfect time for me to script this part of this video. So I made sure I got that done. I got it done 10 minutes early. That was free time then. That 10 minutes was, I'm going to just treat myself to a video.
What did you treat yourself to?
I like watching gaming videos.
Okay, cool.
I love playing games, but watching gaming videos is kind of like the quicker way of doing that.
Whoa.
But yeah, so we were saying, am I naturally organized? So I would say I am like 90% that. My fiance, Drisha, is 100% that. She is extremely detail oriented.
Got it.
And this is actually something we haven't yet announced on the channel, but we're about to. So I can say here, she's actually just left her job to join our team.
Whoa.
Wow.
So we've just started working together. I am the visionary and she is the general manager. So she's someone who's going to be able to orchestrate the team to get the output we want, keep track of all the little things, while I can focus on just being the presence on camera, doing the thing that makes the channel work.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there. The first thing I want to say is the concept of the visionary. Who were we talking to about the Michael Jordan?
Ollie.
Oh, that was Ollie. Yeah. We were talking
we had
about
Ollie on the show. He talked about that.
Yeah, he was talking about the concept that like Michael Jordan was not, his job was not to sell tickets to the arena. His job was not to market the team. His job was not to sell jerseys. His job was to be Michael Jordan. And I think hearing that from Ollie, I was like, that is such a great point when it comes to creators. We naturally flow into being the manager and the entrepreneur, right? Especially if we want to expand. Growing to 7 people, you are the manager, like you are the general manager.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets challenging, and tell me if this is part of it or has been part of it, is like, let's say you're having a frustration with a team member and then within 10 minutes you need to be on camera.
That's exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
That's
like you're like the fun creator guy who's on camera making jokes, doing, and you're like pissed off at your team 10 minutes prior because something's not set up or it's not done right. What was managing, or what has managing been like for you?
So we totted up my hours recently, and it was 92 is what it got to in a week. So 92 hours in a week is essentially 2 people's jobs plus some more.
Yeah.
And all of those hours, a lot of those hours came from the micromanaging things, the little things that you're like, oh, I'll just quickly do this, and then I'll just quickly do this. And it adds into so much work because you have so many roles to play as a YouTuber. And every time you add one more person into your team, the amount of times you have to do those things multiplies. You've got to do one extra set of like organization, because I was spelling out what each team member was doing on every single day, and then also like policing that, checking in on that, making sure they're happy doing that, while doing the things that people see as well. So it got to a point where I was very, very overwhelmed. And it just so happened to be a time when Drisha was looking for jobs. And we had this discussion where we're like, why don't you do this job?
Yeah. So now the complications of, working with a significant other, how are you approaching that? It's pretty common actually in YouTube businesses. It's not uncommon, but
think about like Blogilates.
Yeah.
Or Michelle Carre.
Yeah.
There are there's
a lot of comps to it. I think about it, and I think my wife would vehemently agree, could never do it. I could not do that. That would be very challenging for me. How have you approached it, or what do you think about going into that? Like, have you created a document together of, hey, here's how we're going to do this?
Yeah, there are already lots of spreadsheets.
There's a lot of spreadsheets.
That's how she works.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's just constant conversation. I think it's not been challenging yet. It's very early stages yet. So everything she's doing is like a bonus.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing it as like, if it was just me, I wouldn't have done that. So this is great.
Yeah.
I imagine, there will be times when we disagree with things, but she's quite happy to be like, this is your baby. You created this. You make the call, and I'll just do it.
And what's your relationship to work-life balance, and how does that impact it? Because that now creates a situation where you go home and lay in bed and you're next to your general manager.
Yeah. I think it's cool, to be honest. I think it's cool. Like last night, we were just walking round and round the garden, just kicking a ball. And we figured out our next step with the team, a problem we were having. Or, we were playing a video game this morning together while discussing what we're doing today. And so it allows you to arrange your personal and your work life in a way that suits you both, as opposed to you both being slaves to separate operations.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can see that, like having a unified vision for life
and goal.
goal.
So we've decided we're working this weekend, but starting from Wednesday till the next weekend, we're not working together as a couple.
That's nice.
You both benefit from the flexibility of the same.
Yeah, and no one is going to be more aligned with your goals than the person you're sharing your life with.
Sure.
So like, I'm never going to feel bad asking her to do things, and likewise, because we're both in it together.
Because you've set goals together. Yeah. That's nice.
So you mentioned at one point that you were really overwhelmed. Was this also when you made the decision to go through the fitness transformation? I know, like watching your channel, it's clear you talk about it.
Yeah.
That there was a point where you were really stretched thin and sort of at a rock bottom of sorts.
Yes. Yeah. Around there. But it also comes and goes. Like sometimes you feel like you fixed it, and then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I just don't feel good. It's not like you suddenly just fix it and you're better. You can fall into traps, especially when you're a perfectionist, like I would say I am. Like I want to micromanage everything. That's my gut. But yes, that was probably the biggest point where I realized I have to let go. I have to like do the 80% sometimes and not necessarily the 100.
Can you bring us into a day or a moment in your life when you kind of had that realization?
So it's very, very consistent. So let's say a normal day 3 years ago would be a filming day. So I do 9 till about 7 p.m. I'm filming. Then as the team gets a little bit bigger, you add in a little check-in with the team at like half an hour after that. Then as your channel gets a bit bigger, there might be a podcast to go on after that. And so your day my day has slowly got busier and busier and busier with lots of these little things that add up, that it was getting to a stage where I wouldn't finish till like 11 p.m., 12 p.m. And then it's like, okay, I'll cram in a quick video for myself to treat myself that evening. Then I'll sleep. Then I'll do it again. So just like very, very consistent, can't quite see the break in my future and not looking forward to the week.
Yeah. That is a dangerous place to be as a creator.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I think this is supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah, right?
But it's not.
And you're the boss.
Yeah.
Well, who's the boss?
I don't. Well, that's true.
Yeah,
we don't know who exactly is the boss, but in that scenario,
You're the boss.
You're the boss.
Yeah, it's almost like you've built yourself this gilded cage, right? Like a golden jail cell, where you're like, it is really nice. It is my own thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like locked in here, and I also have the key.
Yeah, so I'm not treating myself very well.
But I can't unlock it and get out. I can't free myself.
Yeah.
So what's happening? It's an interesting emotion to wrestle with.
I think when you start, you have this like electric energy because you're experiencing success for the first time.
Yeah.
And nothing can replace that. You can't get that again. Like that's a one-time thing, right? As soon as you go from, I don't know what to do with my life to this is it, I found it, that's once, right?
That's true.
So you can sometimes try and chase that feeling again and again when actually what you should be doing is starting to think about what's my new goal? What's my North Star? What am I trying to do here?
It's a really good point. I was journaling the other day and I was writing about the feeling when you reach the bottom of a mountain and look up, but you know you can climb it.
Okay.
That is a one-time feeling, I think, of like, you know, when you actually start catching some of that momentum on YouTube or in whatever your entrepreneurial journey is, and you're like, wait a second, I can climb this. You know, it's a very exhilarating feeling of
100%.
that incredible moment of opportunity. And the thing is, once you do climb it, you become aware of what it means to climb the mountain. And so the next time you get there, you actually have almost too much context on what it means to climb.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And then all it can be is either better, but that's rare, but more than likely it'll be like, oh, okay, well, this was a bit underwhelming compared to the first time.
Or it was what I expected. It was as hard as I expected, or there was easier parts and harder parts. Like I have context as to what this was.
I forget what I was reading, but there was actually an analogy based off this of climbing the mountain, and that talked about how there are some people who, when they get to the top of the mountain, they sit and enjoy the view, and there are other people who immediately notice how many other mountains there are to climb and aren't even thinking about what they just went through.
Yeah. That was the Arnold documentary.
That was the Arnold documentary, which was
good.
great.
It's very good. On the team front, how do you build a team that has the attention to detail of your team? Because I also wonder, like team morale and like as creators are building teams like us, the channel is, in our context, it's Colin and Samir, right? And so no one's going to care about it in the same way that Colin and Samir care about it. But we have interfaced with a lot of creator teams that take a lot of pride in the work.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be challenging because there's 7 people, but we don't, we know Josh because he's been in your videos. Yeah. We know Joseph, who's in your videos as well. But we don't really know many of the other people who make up the team. But they have to have an incredible attention to detail and care for the work. How do you build a team like that?
So I think it's a few things. It's finding people who relish in the fact that they are going to be seen, what they make is going to be seen by millions, as opposed to necessarily feeling like I need to be the face of that. Because in itself, that is still a pretty cool opportunity, right? This is the bleeding edge of media right now. And so being a part of that in a startup-like format is exciting for the right person. So that's a part of it. But then it's also the way you incentivize people. So right now we have a mission to beat Apple in subscribers. And that's both an external mission and an internal mission. And my team know that when we do that, everyone gets a bonus. So the troops are almost rallied toward this one objective. And I've made it very clear, and I write out a team message every single week to make sure each person can see not just what they're doing, but what each other person is doing. And we make it very clear how each person's role contributes towards that objective, which has a bonus for everybody as a part of it, regardless of what part they're playing in that. So it creates this really like, oh, you need a hand? I'm going to help you do that because I can see we're all going together.
That's cool.
That is something we do not do. And I'm sure our team feels that.
Our team editing this is like taking notes. They're like, okay,
we should do that.
But we're trying to learn, we're trying to learn because we are entrepreneurs. We've built companies before, but in this context, like it is different because you are the talent, you are working on the craft of being a creator. And at the same time, you're working on the craft of being a CEO. Yeah. And it is hard. Of course, you can hire, you can bring on a general manager, you can bring on a chief operating officer, but there's a different relationship to it. And in the early stages, it is mostly the majority of companies that we see that are creator-led companies are creator-led. You are the person walking in, having the meeting and saying, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
You're not just the face on camera. Like you are the CEO of the company. How have you learned about all of this? Is it through reading books? Is it through conversations with people? There's part of me that feels like you've read Traction.
No,
you haven't.
No, I don't read.
You don't read?
No, I used to read loads. But since I guess YouTube became a thing, it's always, how do I get this information the fastest? So like summaries, conversations with people, YouTube videos.
Got it.
But yeah, so how have I learned to lead a team? Very much based on feedback. Like I would like to think I'm quite self-aware. Like I do listen to people. So if someone says, hey, I prefer it if you didn't do that, or hey, I guess a more specific example would be like my shorts editor coming to me and saying, oh, when you make me work on long form videos, that doesn't fit with my bonus structure, right? Because he gets paid based on shorts performance. So like something like that makes me think, whoa, yeah, I can totally see like this is bad. I've got to fix this. And then I think about all the other cases where I might have created similar situations in people's minds. So I think just when I get feedback, I really think to myself, where else does this apply? Where are the unsaid examples of this same feeling occurring?
Yeah, you have a very interesting relationship with data and inputs, right? Signals and inputs.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So everyone on the team is essentially incentivized by performance, meaning performance of content.
Yes. So it's basically either the performance of the main channel or performance of the shorts on the main channel, depending on what they're mainly working on.
You are no longer uploading to your shorts channel. Is that correct?
Yes.
All shorts are on the main channel.
Yeah, we killed it.
Was that an unfortunate decision you had to make?
Yeah, so when shorts started, we were like, okay, this seems cool. We should be a part of it. But there's so many unknowns. Like at that point, there was no monetization at all. There was like, we thought this is going to kill your average watch time because the most you can watch a short is like a minute. So we started on a second channel. We built it up to like over 6 million subscribers before we were like, this is a mistake. And it was really difficult because if we just had those 6 million subscribers additive to our main channel, we'd be like the biggest tech channel in the world.
Yeah.
But we just decided it was for the best.
Yeah, that was a realization we made early on too. We were like, if we're going to work on this and it's going to grow, it should grow this channel.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what it should grow. But we've taken our foot off the gas on shorts and short form content, mainly because it's not as fun for us to create. Like, we are long-winded guys. We're having long conversations. That's really fun to do. Shorts are sometimes fun and clips are sometimes fun for us to make, but you know, they contributed to a ton of growth, but just not as fun.
Do you like window your long form content into shorts?
Yeah, we sometimes do. Yeah. But not as active. It's not, I think we have this year specifically kind of taken a bit of our strategy hat off and leaned more into feeling of like, what does this feel like?
I wonder if there's a way to like hire someone who takes that completely off your hands.
Definitely. But I think we also are at our capacity when it comes to management without hiring a general manager or something like that.
And you don't want to do that.
That I'm open to. I'm open to that. But I think until we do that, I don't want to expand any further.
I think I know how much of a process that will be to hire someone like that.
Yeah, that is a process in and of itself. And I'm curious, you alluded to more expansion. Why and into what?
So for the longest time, all I've been thinking about is subscribers, right? Ever since I started the channel, I used to have this like little sheet on my wall and I tick off, yes, we hit like 100. Yes, we hit 200, 300. And ever since then, that's the only objective. And now it's like, let's be Apple in subscribers. But more and more.
Which is 17.5 million?
Something like
that. And you're at 15.5,
I think.
15.5.
Yeah.
So you're 2 million away.
Yeah.
Which is actually not that big of a gap considering your growth. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. But more and more recently, I'd say the connection between subscribers and views is falling. You know, as algorithms get more and more smart at delivering content to just exactly the people who need it, not necessarily those that have clicked the red button, it doesn't matter. So I think as soon as we pass this Apple goal, we then see that as a massive achievement. We celebrate, we say, this is incredible, but we start to think broader about the human nature of what we're doing, the kind of like the North Star, the vision, the idea that like we're here to try and make people make better decisions with their tech. We want people to use the tech they have to make their life better. And so every other decision about the company and building it out should be based on this vision. How can we achieve that goal? So that could mean a book, that could mean a podcast, that could mean products that help people get there.
I see. Got it.
When you say those three, a book, a podcast, products, is there one that you think might be first?
I think books have a long lead time, so probably not that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to monetize a book. The book is like the business card to do other things, right?
Yeah.
Like the book creates a speaking tour or creates sales to a course, or it does. It's a brand moment
and authority. As well.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
But yeah, so I don't think the play is really money. Like I've got enough and we have enough that we don't need any more. Like the actual things I want are very simple. Like the most fun I have is like a board game night in or playing a game of like Pokemon with my cousin.
Yeah.
So like my needs are simple.
And you live with your parents as well.
Yeah.
My dad constantly asks myself and my wife why we don't just move into the house. We live in a typical, Indian fashion. We don't live more than 10 minutes away from them.
Yep.
But he would prefer that we just live in the house. I'm curious if living in, because you not only live there, you shoot there too.
Yeah.
And do your employees work there too?
So the people who come in person, yes.
They work there as well.
Yeah, they work there too.
So do they get like khichdi for lunch and like, yes, they do.
Nice Indian curry.
Wow. Amazing.
And they like it.
Yeah.
So the reasons are twofold, I would say. One, it's very, very convenient. Like the studio is there because that's where I've grown up and I can just walk downstairs and spend time with my family.
Yeah.
And the second part is this kind of feeling of, as you get older, you come towards the tail end of the time with the people you've grown up with, right? Like you tell yourself, I've got 60 more years to live. I'm going to see these people a lot. But the actual time spent is much, much lower the second you move out. So it's kind of just knowing that I'm going to get married and move away and stuff, and relishing this time now.
Absolutely.
I always like, there's that study that shows
man.
the amount of time that you'll spend with your parents.
The graph is so disheartening.
It's like a gut punch when you look at it. So I totally understand that.
Yeah. And also like, I like to treat them, you know, because there's no way I could have done what I've done without like my parents' support. So like to be able to use the channel to give them something that makes them happy and proud is like the absolute best thing.
Yeah, I watched the video last night of you gifting your mom the purple Mercedes.
Yeah, 100%.
It was amazing.
Yeah. You've done such a great job of finding ways to tell a personal story with a tech channel.
I was very skeptical when I clicked on the thumbnail of gifting my mom a Mercedes. That I was like, this seems like it has nothing to do with everything else on the channel. And then you watch it and realize that you're going to add tech to the Mercedes that you've purchased.
Yeah.
You're also going to just review the tech in the Mercedes.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like makes perfect sense. It's just a human way to get into tech.
Even your fitness journey is, you bring tech into it. And I find that your ability to tell a personal story on the tech channel is very impressive to me.
Thank you.
But I would also say, I'm curious, because the trade-off of doing that is also a bit of, lack of privacy, right? There's an opportunity to say, hey, this channel's about tech. Don't look into me. Don't look into my wife, my fiance, my family. Just look at the tech. Opening that door is a decision at that scale, at the scale of 8 to 10 million.
Yeah.
It's a dramatic scale. What is your relationship to opening that door to your personal life?
I would say I'm reserved naturally. And with the first taste of success, it was very much like, I'm going to do tech. Like I was very scared to say anything about myself.
Yeah.
But it's just been this very slow evolution of realizing that people resonate really, really well with it. Like it's very beneficial for them to know you. And it's also me noticing it about myself. Like all it actually takes is to see one video from a YouTuber that you really connect with to then just watch that YouTuber forever.
That's true.
And those peak videos stick in your mind at all times. So I guess I'm trying to create that feeling with the audience.
What's interesting? Your fitness transformation is kind of what brought me in. And granted, we were talking at that time as well, and I was personally getting to know you, but the fitness transformation, you were so honest in that video. You were talking about meditation, and you didn't just say, I'm going to meditate. You were like, I've always struggled with meditation. And then you showed it was hard to do. You were like, for the first few days, it sucked. I just sat and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And that was very honest. And I was like, you're being honest in a way that doesn't feel like forced vulnerability or anything. It's just like straight up. I was like, I had that thought too.
What I like too is that in that it cuts to you and you're speaking to your phone and you go, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to you in your hosted version and you go, I didn't actually get it. Which I really like, the self-awareness of even replaying that moment, because that's relatable too, of kind of telling yourself, I think I felt something. I get it.
Yeah.
It connects me to you more to know that you are self-aware in that way.
It's good feedback actually. Like we're going to try and do a lot more of that stuff. Just be real.
Yeah.
The app. Not the app.
Not the app.
Be real. Okay, got it. You're not expanding into be real. Okay, got it. Yeah, but it's similar to when I watch your videos, I think seeing that Apple video that you made about their events, you talked about how they always make it human, right? Everything is very human in an Apple event. And it always kind of connects you to how it's going to impact your real life.
Yes.
And I think your videos are that for tech reviews, right? You're like, I'm going to this is going to be a human experience. I'm a human. Although I'm talking about this thing that's not human, I'm going to make this whole experience very human. And that is my opinion of what keeps me watching. But you are someone who's talked about watch time being very important to you. And obviously on YouTube, watch time is incredibly important. Can you explain why watch time matters to you and how you have thought about improving or increasing your watch time for your videos? Yeah,
I've thought about it in a very human way, in that, like, if you're telling a story, you want the other person to be listening, right? You don't want them to just be like nodding, like, yeah. And so if I make a video and it has bad watch time, that's my equivalent of someone being like, nah, I'm not like this guy.
Yeah. Like, I'm looking at you, but I'm not paying attention.
Yeah, I'm not paying attention.
Wow, that's a really powerful human visual.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I want people to enjoy my videos enough that they don't have that feeling, right? So that's the core of it. I guess it helps that your videos do better if people watch more. But the key thing is, are they satisfied? And this is something I'm thinking of more and more, because it used to just be watch time. That's all I would think of. But now it's more like, if like potentially recapping, like if you've had a big story or a journey to get to the end, just being like, wasn't that incredible? Like, we just did that and it was amazing that we did that and I felt like this. Even if it's not optimized, it's this kind of human satisfaction it's building like a goodwill towards your videos. This longer term play that means that the next time someone sees one of your thumbnails, they're like, oh, I remember how I felt during the last one. I'm going to click that. It's like a metric you don't see, but you experience it in the long term.
Let alone the way I felt at the very end. So like my last actual memory of the video, not just the way the entire video made me feel, but those extra 30 seconds at the end.
Of the car video.
Yeah, making sure that there is some intentionality around feeling at the end of a video.
Yeah.
Because that is what people hopefully will remember.
100%.
Even if it's not optimized for watch time. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I think optimization is important, but not everything.
Earlier in the conversation, you talked about a video that you were like, that would be a 1 to 2 million view video. What is the difference between a 1 million view video, a 2 million, a 4 million, 10 million, 20 million? Like, you've experienced all of those. Do you know what the difference is?
Yeah, when we put a video out, we already have an idea, a pretty strong idea of how it's going to do. Sometimes you do different videos for different reasons. Some video might have a sponsor that you really want to work with, so you do it. One of them might have like a passion project. One of it with tech channels is sometimes just for the core tech fans, because the things that lead you to have the biggest growth aren't necessarily the things that make you a tech channel, right? It's like the better the topic, the wider the funnel is, right? The number of potential people you can get. Everything else is just how well you execute on that, but you're naturally capped at how wide that funnel is. So this is why, like, before we decide we're making a video, it's title and thumbnail, right? Those two things have to pass the test.
Right.
In the same way that, like, before you sell a physical product, you do market research, right? You make sure there is actually demand for the thing you're about to try and fix the problem for. So that has to...
So you can make an assumption, like, buying the thinnest phones out there has a probably huge top funnel because it's an extremely visual experience. You don't have to be into
100%.
tech. Then maybe reviewing one of the new iPhones, then maybe the software, iOS.
Yeah.
Under that, maybe the nothing phone.
Maybe.
And on the top of some of that is 50 facts about me.
Somehow.
Isn't that interesting? That was one you mentioned you didn't really expect, right?
Not in the slightest.
Because 8.5 or 9 million people interested in that is, you're the subject.
Yeah.
And that, I think, in a channel that the subject is oftentimes this other object, you can maybe lose sight of, or I guess I'll ask the question, like the relationship to self-worth, or like, am I the reason you're here? Or is this phone the reason you're here?
I think people, you mentioned that we work like Apple, and actually we do that in a lot of ways, some of which aren't as obvious. And one of them is we do a lot of things that we think are hard to recreate, but we don't tell people how we do them. So there's an implicit like mystery, like, how do I catch phones out of thin air? How do we suddenly transition the background while I'm sitting in the same spot? So like, there's unanswered questions with our channel, and that creates, I think, a little bit of natural intrigue.
That's good. I like that a lot. That's really good. It's fun.
So you said earlier that we're at the bleeding edge of media, which is really, I love that phrase, but it is true. And then when I watch your videos, you've gotten to a point with your hosting where sometimes it feels like you're at a caliber that is of a television host, a really seasoned television host. Do you ever think that you would do a project that is on something like a Netflix?
I have not thought about that. That's pretty cool if that ever came about. I did a short film once for Xiaomi. It's like a phone company. And my dad was saying to me, Aaron, you're so good on camera. You know, you're so natural. You're like the people on TV. I don't know if that's a higher bar than YouTube. Like, I don't know if YouTube is actually the place to be. It kind of feels like a lot of the people who are traditionally famous want to be famous on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's the fastest way to reach someone directly. Right.
It's the most, and it's also, you have control over it. It's relatively democratic. Yeah. It's a direct line to the audience.
So I think I find it cool in the same way that I'd find like me on a billboard cool, or me in a magazine. But I don't think it would be the next step.
Yes.
For me, it's any of those traditional environments is when my parents like really understand what I do. Like a magazine, we were in, featured in Rolling Stone magazine, and they were like, "Oh,
now I get it."
Yeah. Which is always a nice moment because like your friends and family get it in that 100%. Moment because they aren't on YouTube all the time, like, maybe some other friends or audience members.
It's hard for them to get excited about the watch time of your latest video.
Yeah, let me show you this retention. What is the business of Mr. Who's the Boss? Is it, primarily AdSense? Is it AdSense and sponsorships? Is there something else?
Probably 50% AdSense sponsorships.
Oh, wow.
We don't do much like affiliate stuff or anything because it's a gray area with the like integrity of the channel
for sure. And so you don't accept sponsorships from tech brands, or do you?
Sometimes we do. The general rule is like, if I would talk about this anyway, yes,
you'll take it.
But we also do a lot of digging into like, is it good?
Yeah.
Which I think is like what a lot of channels don't do with their sponsors. So like, like there might be a wallet company, for example, and that their product is worth $20, but they'll sell it for $100 because it's got the YouTubers' names behind it. It's kind of leveraging that. That's the kind of thing we wouldn't cover.
Interesting.
And it's also the kind of thing I would never release. Like we've thought about product a lot of times. The challenge with that is you're up against companies who just have more economies of scale than you. We would never release something that we're like, this already exists, it's cheaper by that company, and it's just as good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because in a sense, you're under the spotlight. Like the tech audience is very, very looking out for the details, right? And you're going to be compared.
Yeah.
How do you, knowing that you'll be compared, how does competition affect you?
In what sense?
In the sense of maybe watching other people do things that they got maybe from your videos, or watching another tech channel and going, that's faster, it's better than we even would have done it.
Yeah, we have it a bit. Like we like to be first and best, but it's a constant thing we ask ourselves. Like, even though it would be nice to be the first to cover something, is that what we want? Because if you're the first, I think in the tech world you can't also be the best, right? So the way we see it is, if we accept the fact that we're not first, and we accept the fact that we want to be the best. So every time we make a video, we're leaving a lasting impression on the viewer that's building that long-term goodwill and that sort of positive energy towards your channel. That's a better long-term play. Because if you're someone who just chases, okay, the new iPhone's out, I'm going to post the first video on the new iPhone, you're a news source, right? You're the person someone comes for the update. Whereas we don't want to be that. We want to be the person who people want to watch every video from, regardless of what it's on.
And maybe regardless of when it came out.
Yeah.
They can go back and watch, right?
Yeah, and it's just a more stressful lifestyle to be constantly chasing the news. Like, we do it to some extent, but if you tell yourself, okay, I've got to release the video the same day that news is announced, you'll never want to take a holiday or do anything. Right?
I also think there's better platforms for that. I think Twitter is where I go for news. If something just happened, I'm going to Twitter. That's how I operate. And then after a day or so, if I want a really well thought out explanation of what just happened, I'm going to YouTube.
So you wait before going?
Because I want someone to collect their thoughts before I don't want like the immediate reaction I'm going to get on Twitter. Right.
That's true.
So I would rather get collected thoughts and well articulated thoughts when it comes to, like, we always talk about, like, you want to be early and better, not necessarily first.
Right.
like it's good to be early because that's the interest is there. But you do want to be early and better, not necessarily first.
Yeah. And also because we kind of know that our video is naturally going to a wider audience, there's this higher sense of like responsibility. Like you have that brand to uphold. It can't be below a certain level.
Interesting. So you're aware of the scale of your audience when you're obviously, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we know what a Mr. Who's the Boss video is in our mind. And I assume the audience has the same kind of perception.
Yeah.
We don't want to shock that perception. It will have some editing. It will have some music.
Right. Do you feel competitive with Marquez?
No, I'd say we see him as like a friend. There's a lot to learn.
He's also hard to not, like he's so kind and fun to talk to and sweet that it's hard to be like, that's my enemy, or that's, like that would be hard.
But does it push you and your team that he is there?
Yeah, I'd say it's good to have like people who like are on the same level as you, who are doing what you're doing. Like when I was at the start and I had like an objective, I wanted to be like the largest tech channel in the UK. That was the goal. And so that fueled me. That was like a rocket fuel moment because I was like, how do I do this? This one objective, this is the singular thing I want in my life. Every decision I make can be geared towards doing that. And that's what made me go crazy. That's what made me do one video every single day, for example. And it made that process more satisfying because I had that end goal in mind. So in the same way, this gives us like a goal. It gives us a point of reference.
Yeah. What's your relationship with achieving that goal, though, of being the best channel in the UK, being the biggest tech channel in the UK?
So why did I want to achieve that goal?
And even what does it feel like now that you've achieved it?
It felt really, really cool. I remember at the time I like changed my like banner and stuff to like the largest tech channel. I think it was in like my email signature and stuff as well. So that was a great moment. But then after a bit, we were like, actually, the UK is kind of small on the global scale. We don't want to just be like a UK channel, right? We want to be the largest tech community on the planet. And then, then the objective changes.
It's a pretty big jump from UK to planet. You could have gone Europe or something.
Yeah. Not the same ring to it.
Planet,
But yeah, going back to the kind of like healthy competition thing, I think that's when you're at your best.
Yeah.
I don't think you're at your best when you achieve everything and you just sit at the top and you know you're the best, right? I think it's the journey. It's constantly getting better with a even potentially unreachable goal at the end.
Yeah. Agreed. Is your audience US based, or do you think about that? And when you say the planet, are you thinking about dubbing and multi-language audio, and how do you become the biggest?
That's a good question. So US is number one, closely followed by India, and then UK would be number 3. And so we're already naturally very global, considering like tech, like anyone can find tech interesting, right? And everyone at different stages of even country development is excited in the latest that's happening. Yeah, so we have actually looked into AI dubbing. I don't know if you've seen like Papercup, the company, for example.
We haven't seen that company, but we've been working on AI dubbing as well and voice cloning and all that. Yeah,
it's really, really interesting what they can do. My hesitation with it is that I feel like YouTube is also working on a similar feature.
They are.
Natively.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm almost like hesitant to commit myself to like a big deal with one of these dubbing companies. Because I also think like it's really good in the stage it is, but right now it feels like a knockoff version of your normal videos in English.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you're making, let's say I make an iPhone review, in the UK and in the US, that iPhone review stands as one of the best iPhone reviews on YouTube. Once you dub it, all the text that was written on screen, all the graphics, all the speech that's tailored towards an English audience, you lose all of that. And so you're sitting there, even the information is different for, let's say, like a Mexican viewer. So you're sitting there next to Mexican YouTubers who are like hyper-tailored to the market they're in. Is that what you want Mr. Who's the Boss to be known for? Like to be a slightly less good version of the local YouTubers?
Interesting.
Like a cheaper brand in another country that's really like a knockoff almost version. Yeah, that's super interesting. And it really, the thing that we're running into right now is dialect is challenging, right? With AI voice cloning. And then terminology, culturally, the way I say something in English does not really translate in Spanish sometimes. Right? Like I'm saying sentences that are uniquely American.
And it will happen more and more with our content because it's very highbrow, like intelligent, sophisticated, nuanced points you're making.
Yeah.
And then you like when you get AI to do voices for you, even things like saying the word apple, right? The AI needs to understand I'm not talking about an apple.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, there's a sentence that we're working on this AI dub of one of our Mr. Beast videos, and I say, "Man, it's cool to be here," and in Spanish it translates to "hombre," and that's just not something culturally that they would say, right? They would not, in the same way that in America we say, "Man, that's cool." That's not a cultural thing that they say there. So there's a lot that's going to need to improve to make it truly global. Obviously, Jimmy's doing it with real humans who can read the script and go, okay, actually, this is how we would say it.
Yeah.
Then you're dealing with speed. With your videos, like the speed at which you deliver something in English, there might be way more words in Korean to be able to say what you just said. So now the video is operating at a place where the speed at which the Korean or Japanese or Mandarin needs to be said is exponentially faster than the cut of the video.
I didn't even consider that, but that's a major problem.
It's a major problem with people who are editing the amount that you're cutting, right? Too. And so I think it's complex in the AI, like to do this with AI, because it almost strips us of what makes us uniquely human in different cultures. And then you lose what we've been talking about is your videos are human.
Yeah.
Now I've lost that in another country.
100%. Yeah. I think we made the decision based on that without realizing we made the decision based on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for now, I think it's not good enough. And having a human dub our videos is just not time sensitive enough.
Yeah. And it's very expensive.
Yeah, and it's expensive.
Yeah, it's not a cheap thing to do.
Plus, like, I guess in a way, English is the highest monetizing language.
Right.
So like to pay extra to then access some of like the Hindi market or the Spanish market.
Which is a lower CPM and there's not native advertising that you can do for that market yet.
And I think also brands coming to you will want to know then, if you've got a Spanish dub, is each view you get on average worth less to them?
That's a really interesting
These
point.
are all really good points for the use case for waiting. For dubbing.
It almost makes what Jimmy was doing earlier make more sense of saying Mr. Who's the Boss in Espanol as its own channel, as its own syndicated content, rather than all baked into one video. Obviously, for scale, it's like it should be baked into one video, but it creates all types of new data considerations. Is the watch time impacted? Like if the watch time in Spanish is 10%.
It would be, right?
It would be, right?
Yeah.
And then the watch time in English is actually 80%. What just happened to the watch time?
That's a really good point.
Yeah. There's so many considerations when it comes to multi-language audio that I think it's very exciting to roll out, but like we have to take a step back and say, wait, what does this all mean to syndicate like that?
I also feel like the culture of watching things that are not in your naked...
naked,
that are not in your native language is like becoming more acceptable. Like you boot up Netflix, Korean show, Indian show, and I think like in my friend group, everyone wants to watch it the way it was shot, not the dubbed version.
With subtitles.
With subtitles.
Yeah. I watched Squid Game with subtitles, which was really nice.
Because it captures that human emotion.
Right. Yeah. And as AI enters our world, we're going to crave things that are uniquely human. That we're going to crave more human experiences.
Does actually AI in content creation scare you guys?
It scares me in the sense of my voice and Colin's voice are some of the most available voices on the internet. We're out there for 2 hours at a time, and our voices have been cloned for ads that play for casinos and stuff. And like,
what?
Yeah, like
it's already
that just happened. We just had to get something taken down, and like, I had to sit down with my family and say, hey, if you get a call from me, we're going to have to come up with a secret word because my voice is so available that people are cloning my voice. So that scares me. I don't think we are prepared at all as a society for the scale at which AI is going to impact us.
The influx of audio and video that will be indistinguishable and unable to really tell if it's real or AI is going to be something we are definitely not ready for.
Yeah.
And everyone is a content creator, right? Everyone is uploading content to the internet. So we are essentially open sourcing our essence, right? Saying, hey, here's what I look like. Here's what I sound like. Here's how I dress.
Here's how I'll most likely respond.
Here's how I type. Here's how I respond in email. Here's how I text, right? It's all like relatively open source. So as you start pulling these identities, whether or not it's for malicious intent or even commercial intent, what if in the future, a phone company says, we're actually going to create our own avatar of a phone reviewer. And we really like Mr. Who's the Boss and how he delivers. So we're going to take some of his elements and we're actually just going to create a VTuber that delivers. What happens then? Is that your IP if it's delivered in the same way? What if they pull partially of what they like from you and partially what they like from Marquez and Unbox Therapy, and they just say, we're going to combine these into an avatar?
It's not unfeasible, given that the way data is trained now, like the way AI is trained now, like it'll learn what every artist, the way they work.
How do we know that people aren't just building models already based on, hey, ingest every one of Mr. Who's the Boss videos? Scripts, style, voice.
Like the doc that you've made for your editors could be made much easier.
If an AI got that.
If an AI just scanned your videos, it could probably make the doc in a way more detailed way that you couldn't even. It's like the average amount of seconds we go before a cut is this.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. And like I see a lot of YouTubers on Twitter, for example, saying they're getting hold of AI. They can see the end of creators because this AI can just make the videos for you. That scares me.
I don't know if it's the end of creators. I think just it will all change. Like, you know, when I was working in Hollywood before, you know, I took to YouTube, and like, I remember that conversation too of like, this is the end of, you know, Hollywood as we knew it. And like everything still kind of ends up coexisting. And, you know, what about the end of radio? Like, did radio end because podcasting? No, so radio still exists.
Content will not end. People will always want to consume content, but it's the skills required to deliver that content will change.
They will change. Yeah, agreed. So which they have already.
Yeah. But it's scary in the sense that I know I've hit the jackpot with YouTube right now. It turns out that the skills I have developed really align with what the viewers want to see.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that in a new world with a new set of requirements, I will be as well adapted.
True.
So you can't control that whether AI comes into the picture or not.
Yeah. But AI changes the paradigm in a way that you just need to always make sure you're at the cutting edge. Thankfully, being a tech channel, we are quite versed in it. But it's this constant constant creeping feeling of like, what if there's a new program that allows you to do this? And we're spending 3 hours doing it. Other people can do it in 10 seconds.
I mean, that happened to us with post-production, with podcasting. We use a program called Autopod that will automatically cut all of these angles for us.
That's like, how much time is that saving you? Like
an entire day.
Yeah.
Multiple days, actually, because a 2-hour conversation cut by a human to make sure that when you're talking, it's on you. When we're talking, it's on us. When we're all talking, it's on the wide. The fact that we can do that now in about just under 60 seconds for 2 to 3 hours is
crazy.
Insane.
It's ridiculous.
It's opened up a lot though for us, right? Like that opens up time. It opens up, that's also like the tough part of editing. It's like the monotonous part. And so now you can go, okay, that part is done by AI. Now what's the creative part? Right.
You're right, but it's helpful for you because you've twigged early and done it.
Yes.
So like if you were you, but you hadn't made that decision, you'd actually be falling behind.
Yeah. And there's more stuff that we're unaware of that could impact it. But yeah, I don't know. I do think anyone who's not playing with AI on a regular basis, I mean, Colin knows, I pull him to sit next to me and I play with Midjourney all the time and learn new prompts and show him what I'm learning. And I like the one that I showed you the other night was just jaw dropping on Midjourney. The knolling. Like it was jaw dropping to look at these images and say a photographer plus, like it was like an editorial magazine shoot essentially that I created with a human and like a bunch of stuff around them, like perfectly laid out like a flat lay.
And it like all made by AI.
Yeah, within a matter of seconds. And it's like, I'm looking at the future of like photography, modeling, magazine layouts, editorial content. Like that to me is dramatic what's about to happen. When a fashion brand, my family runs a clothing brand, when they can upload the dress to AI and say, use this dress and give me this type of model in this type of environment with this type of lighting. And in a matter of seconds, you have your campaign shot. That is a dramatic difference in creative content.
And so, it does make you think what happens to us, right? Like, is there less room for creators if AI exists? Because fewer people will be able to make more stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas people only have a limited number of time.
We'll find out. I don't know. I do think this is one of the most dramatic shifts since I got the internet in my house, right? Like, this to me feels like the most dramatic shift. And it's yet to be seen. We didn't know what that was going to be like when we all logged on to AOL. You know, we had no idea what was about to happen. I think we're at that same moment in time. And for creators, a lot has changed recently. Short form content changed the nature of our business dramatically.
It did.
I think AI is about to change it. And I'm curious for you, as you look to the future, we mentioned that like tech is changing at like really, at least hardware feels like it's changing in like nominal ways. Software is changing a lot more dramatically with AI. Is that kind of how you see the next, like when you're looking out at the rest of the year, how planned out are you with your videos? Do you know that, okay, these big tech launches are in my calendar, I know these are coming, or is it kind of week to week, like, oh, this sounds cool? Like, how do the decisions on what to make come about?
So there's key windows of time which you kind of assume you're not going to book anything in, like an Apple launch, a Samsung launch.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it's generally very short notice. So like most things will be like, hey, can you fly to Madrid next week, kind of thing.
Someone saying to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you kind of have to be quite responsive. But I more and more want to engineer my life so that I don't have to worry about that, right? I don't want to have to constantly change my plans and not commit to things, because that's also a problem on a personal level. You know, like one of my best friends got married in India last year, and I didn't go. And I feel bad for not going. And I hate the fact that I felt like I couldn't go. But it was just this feeling of like, what if someone tells me they need me there for a video and it's really important?
So you didn't even have other plans necessarily. Like you could have attended, but it was
basically like it was a zone that was high risk for something coming up. It was like a period of time where I know there's a good chance something comes up, but I didn't know. And so what I would have wanted to say is I can't confirm or deny, but when it comes to like planning a wedding, you have to confirm or deny.
Yeah,
I
definitely
experienced this recently with a friend's wedding. The fear of loss of opportunity is a significant one for
exactly
creators.
That, yes.
Because we are working. Do you have a fear that you'll lose your position as the number one tech channel in the UK? Is that where that, because I've had to really unpack where my fear comes from.
It's probably something I could benefit from doing, really thinking. But what it's meant is like I've tried to make a document with Drisha about the hierarchy of how I should make decisions so that I can do so without regret. Because I'm constantly having this battle of that family friend's wedding is great, but is it important enough that I should sacrifice this video?
Well, Indian culture also, we get invited to like
a lot of events.
Distant friend.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And my gut tells me I don't want to go to that. That's not a good use of my time.
Right.
But I want to do so knowing that I've made the right decision. Yeah. So I'm trying to build like a framework for making these decisions for me, essentially.
In AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just build
yeah.
AI for it. Yeah. Should I go to this wedding?
Does that ever make you feel like an outlier? I think it's interesting, like starting as someone who maybe felt like they didn't fit in, then feeling like you really fit in on YouTube. Then you've gotten to a point where your life is so unique that you have to make a checklist and a framework for whether you should attend someone's wedding or an event. Do you ever sit and go, oh my gosh, I've now taken myself to a place where I have problems that really not many people have and no one can understand?
There's a bit of that. But I think it's always nice that like there's always other creators, right, who do understand. Yeah. And I think more recently I've built up like some creator friends. Yeah. That really helps.
That does help.
It's super important.
Yeah. These conversations, we always say sometimes we sit with creators on mic or off mic, and there's some things that get discussed that like you just can't say in a casual environment.
Yes.
Like even if you led with that, you're like, I'm trying to create a document to decide if I can go to events or not. I would understand that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like that's a really funny thing to connect over.
But the emotion, the feeling you have is, I would like to be someone who can go to these events, make the decision,
Yeah.
In a fashion that I trust and that's easy.
Yeah.
Without the guilt.
Without the
Without
regret.
the guilt.
Yeah. Without the regret and the guilt. Yeah. That's also like probably just classic entrepreneurship, startup founder, you know, like that is, you're always sacrificing. You're like, especially on the internet where it's just infinite, the opportunity is infinite, right? There's no cap on the opportunity of the internet. So you actually, even in this moment, you're kind of negotiating, like, is this the right use of my time? Or technically, could I be, you know, working on a video of mine? Or tomorrow when you're at breakfast, it's like, yes, I could be here, but I also could be editing or reviewing a cut, and there's these constant trade-offs that you have to get really comfortable with. What's your position on that? You know, what's your what's fulfilling to you? What's happiness? What's time, space, all of that? Because the internet will not tell you. It's not a job. It's not clock out at this time. It's always here for you. You can always refresh YouTube Studio. You can always look at your data. You can always, it's just constant.
And because there's such a clear link between your output and what you get back from it, you just want to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy also because the arrows go green and then they go gray.
Yeah.
And so like it's built to keep you on, right? It's built to keep you on the cycle because you don't want those arrows to go gray.
You also, I guess there's this fear in the back of my mind that things might not stay the way they are. It's this awareness that things are great and I need to constantly tell myself, this is good. Yeah. This is what I always wanted. But just, it may not always be. Like, what's YouTube in 10 years? If someone asked me, like, what will I be doing in that period of time ahead? I could not tell them.
Who knows? Do you have aspirations, though, of building like a broader tech media brand, like what The Verge is or Wired, or, you know, is that kind of the vision for this? Is like, hey, let's build a scalable tech media brand, or is it always, it's me?
It's something that I've just started thinking about now, basically. Now that Drish has joined the team, it's giving me the space a little bit to be able to think, what do I want? But I'm also aware that being able to think, what do I want, is in itself a privilege, right? It's a sign that you should just be happy.
Yeah.
It's such a luxury.
Totally. I would think that some of the next chapter could include written content about tech. Because I think you have very keen attention to detail about storytelling and how to make this stuff make sense and be uniquely human. And written content is scalable. And if you have a desire to potentially, you know, at some point, safeguard against yourself as a creator, you know, obviously we've invested quite a bit in written content. I just think written content is something that maybe us creators don't think about as much, but there's good comps in technology.
That's very interesting. Yeah, newsletters have crossed my mind a lot. And the benefit of that is I can really like set it up exactly the way I want it. Right. And then there's a process. But yeah, that's food for thought. I do, like, when I was younger, I would look at traditional tech journalists as if they were like God's gift to mankind. You know, like they are the definitive authority on tech. Right. It was only when I met a lot of these journalists that I was like, you actually don't know this as well as I do. It was this kind of understanding that I am one of them too. Yes. And I can be an authority on this. So you're not wrong.
Where does this genre go in the next chapter? Like, is there space for, you know, for more creators in the tech review genre? It's been one of the most prominent genres on YouTube since I started watching. But does it have a future?
I think it's if you're established, it's a really good industry to be in because it's carried by the things you're covering in a sense, right? Tech is becoming the world. Tech is at the top of the news cycle. By being the person who people come to learn tech, you are that. But what it's really hard to do in tech now, I think, is to become known because it's much harder to be trusted as the person who gives like a definitive opinion on how to spend your money compared to someone who can make you laugh, right? Like becoming someone who's known for entertainment, I think, is easier because you just have to answer the question, do I find this video fun? Whereas to become a new tech reviewer, someone has to really build up an understanding of your natural biases and a real trust for the advice you give them.
Interesting.
I think the way that will happen will be similar to how you reviewed software. And that was your competitive advantage and your niche, that as tech enters every part of the world, there will be some creators who are known at first for just reviewing tech in the kitchen or just tech in certain parts of a car or tech in the workplace, tech in sports. Like there will be so many niches, I think, where people can probably get their first entry into building that trust with a very like-minded person who's like, oh yeah, I'm also into tech in sports. And then maybe insightful. They get to expand over time, like the way that you did.
It's definitely always my advice to new creators is start with a niche, because you're much more likely to make something that the bigger YouTubers aren't doing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
true. Because it's too small for them.
Because it's too small for them.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I get a lot of people who are like, why did you not cover this small phone?
Yeah.
And there's an element of like, I don't have enough time in my life to cover every phone. I've got to really pick the ones that I think will make the biggest impact.
Yeah, from a viewership perspective.
Yeah, because in a sense, that's also an indication of what's most interesting,
of course,
to the vast majority of people.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. What's success look like for you this year? Okay, if you get to the end of 2023, what for you is like that was a successful year? This is
going to be like a bumper year essentially, because I spent a long time me being the CEO, the everything for this company. So being only very recently starting to think about how to do. I've only recently started to realize I'm very overwhelmed, and therefore getting the structures in place to take that off my plate and be able to think about the bigger picture. So like, I'm really, really excited about what we're going to do this year, but I don't fully know what that looks like because I've just unlocked the space to be able to give it.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. What an exciting place to be.
What a great moment to have this conversation and to look back on it and be like, that was a
I'll commit myself now.
Yeah. Cool, man. Thank you so much for the conversation.
This was really fun.
This was really, really fun, man.
Yeah. Thank you.